Hey Brad Squad, today we are at the No Business with ICE National Day of Action at Rockefeller Center in New York City. Across the country, hundreds of people are marching together to take action against these big corporations that support ICE. We're going to be following some protesters today. I don't know exactly where we're going to go, but they're going to take us to some major corporations that actually support ICE. ICE is supported by private tech companies, hospitals, local police departments, airlines, and so many more big corporations. Remember, there are still 12,800 children that are in detention centers. The Trump administration is proposing new regulations to detain children indefinitely. But the protesters here today are speaking against that. Let's go hear what they have to say.
No borders, no nations, no more deportation. No borders, no nations, no more deportation.
Mass deportation is
On your hands, on your hands, get profit. Immigrants over profit. Microsoft, get with it. We won't be complicit. We are here because Microsoft has a contract that directly supports ICE. The contract is $19.4 million. So we're here to ask Microsoft to cancel their horrendous contract with ICE. Don't play nice with ICE. Don't play nice with ICE.
So like we said, I didn't know exactly where we were going to walk to, but the protesters actually brought us in front of Microsoft, who's allegedly or supposedly one of the biggest corporations that does business with ICE. And now they are actually attempting to walk in. You can actually see them inside the store with their signs protesting. This is amazing. This is crazy to see. The police are all over. They're very peaceful right now, but we're going to continue to check this out. Why do you think it's important to be here, especially in front of these major corporations? And do you think that they will end, business with ICE with you guys being here protesting?
Well, I'm no expert on the subject of contracts, but I'm a tourist on holiday. I live in London in the UK. Very similar issues in the UK. And the key issue is about big business needing to have some ethical practice, and enforced deportation and separation of families and children has been well publicized around the world, and it's America's shame.
We're part of COSECHA, which is an immigrant-led movement. We're fighting for the permanent protection of the 11 million undocumented immigrants in this country. And that's COSECHA, that's the movement that I'm a part of.
Why do you feel like it's important to speak your voice?
Because there are over 12,800 children who are still in detention, and families are being torn apart all over this country. There's ICE raids everywhere around the country, separating families, not just on the border, but everywhere within the country.
In our neighborhood of Bushwick, where we live, there are deportations that are happening literally on our streets. People that are being dragged out of their bed in the middle of the night and just pulled and detained and ripped from their families. And the fact that you have these major corporations that are actively participating in collaboration with ICE is just, it's disgusting, and no one is holding them accountable on a large scale.
And it's an international issue because what Trump allows in America then enables awful right-wing anti-immigrant practices to, they feel they've got permission around the world. So it's an international issue, although it's particularly affecting America.
What are other major corporations that you know of that support ICE?
There's a lot of corporations that support ICE. There's Amazon is a big one. We had 2 different actions against them recently. The last one on July 31st when we shut down their Amazon bookstore, also in Midtown. There's also all sorts of airlines support them. There's private prisons like Geo Group and Core Civic. There's banks like Wells Fargo. All of these places, all of these private corporations, banks, they all support ICE. And we don't usually hear about it. But they definitely enable ICE to do what they do, and if they did not support ICE and if they canceled their contracts and did not invest in ICE, then ICE would they would not be able to function because they would not have the money, they would not have the resources to do what they do, which is to terrorize the people in this country and terrorize families and rip them apart.
That is why it's important for us to come out here and use our voices and try to disrupt the normal operations of these businesses.
What are these businesses and corporations actually saying about why they are working with ICE?
I think that what they're saying is that, they're participating in a contract that serves to provide ICE with the equipment that is used to detect people and surveil people and figure out where they live, what their identity is, whether or not they're undocumented.
Microsoft is one of them. They have a $19.4 million contract with ICE, and they provide data support and also facial recognition software to them. And we cannot let that happen. They need to cancel their contract.
Clearly don't need the money. Look at the store. They don't need the money.
Right.
They got Xbox.
I want you to look at the camera and talk to the immigrants out there.
We are here for you because we are a community, regardless of our differences, regardless of our backgrounds. We need to stand together as people, especially since a lot of these things are happening on our very streets, are happening to those we care about, those we grew up with. And I just want to say that there's so many of us and so few of them, and thus we must protect each other at the same time, respecting that everybody here is a human being, and no human being should be in cages.
I can only say I feel for them. I'm a mother, I've got a daughter. I can't begin to imagine the heartbreak that's involved in being forcibly separated from your child, and for the children to be forcibly separated from their parents, particularly their mothers. It's absolutely immoral. Terrible.
Well, there you have it. Today was very eventful. You saw protesters going into the Microsoft building. You have protesters from not just around the country, but from around the world fighting against these major corporations that are still supporting ICE. I hope that you guys will get used to this because we're going to be covering a lot more protests, okay? Back at the studio.